Hello, everyone. Got a few dirty jokes for you today.
So one night, a little girl walks in on her parents making love. The mother is going up and down on the father, and when she sees her daughter looking at them, she immediately stops. "What are you doing, Mommy?" The mother is too embarrassed to tell her little girl about making love, so she makes up an answer. "Well, sweetie, sometimes Daddy's tummy gets too big, so I have to jump up and down on it to flatten it out." The little girl replies, "Well, Mommy, you really shouldn't bother with that." The mother has a confused look on her face. "Why do you say that, sweetheart?" The little girl replies, "Because, Mommy, every time you leave in the morning, the lady next door comes over and blows it back up." So the elderly Italian man went to his parish priest and asked if the priest would hear his confession. "Of course, my son," said the priest. "Well, Father, at the beginning of World War II, a beautiful woman knocked on my door and asked me to hide her from the Germans. I hid her in my attic, and they never found her. That's a wonderful thing, my son, and nothing that you need to confess," said the priest. "It's worse, Father. I was weak and told her that she had to pay for rent of the attic with her sexual favors," continued the old man. "Well, it was a very difficult time, and you took a large risk. You would have suffered terribly at their hands if the Germans had found you hiding her. I know that God, in his wisdom and mercy, will balance the good and the evil and judge you kindly," said the priest. "Thanks, Father," said the old man. "That's a load off of my mind. Can I ask another question?" "Of course, my son," said the priest. The old man asked, "Do I need to tell her that the war is over?" So a man is in a hotel lobby. He wants to ask the clerk a question. As he turns to go to the front desk, he accidentally bumps into a woman beside him, and as he does, his elbow goes into her breast. They are both startled, and he says, "Miss, if your heart is as soft as your breast, I know you'll forgive me." She replies, "If your pecker is as hard as your elbow, I'm in room 221. So a father and his 6-year-old son are walking down the street, and they come across two dogs making love. The boy is shocked by what he sees and asks his father, "Daddy, what are they doing?" The father, not wanting to lie to his son, says they're just making a puppy. "Okay," says the son, and the father is relieved that he doesn't probe further. The next day, the son bursts into his parents' room and sees them making love. The father jumps up and quickly covers himself. Knowing he's in for an interesting talk, walks downstairs with him, and they sit at the dining room table. His son asks him, "Daddy, what were you and Mommy doing?" Again, wanting to be honest with his son, he says, "Me and Mommy were making a baby." His son pauses for a moment, thinking, and then replies, "Flip Mommy over. I want a puppy." So a lady says to the psychiatrist, "I think I might be a nymphomaniac." He says, "I'll see what I can do to help you. My fee is $80 an hour." She says, "How much for all night?" So I asked my wife, "Why did you marry me?" She said, "Because you're funny." I said, "I thought it was because I'm good in bed." She laughed and said, "See? You're hilarious." So, a young man and his date were parked on a back road some distance from town. They were about to make love when the girl stopped him. "I should have mentioned this earlier," she said, "but I'm actually a hooker and I charge $20 to make love." The man sighed, paid her the $20, and they did their thing. Afterwards, He lit a cigarette and just sat there, staring out the window. "Why aren't we going anywhere?" she asked. He replied, "Well, I should have mentioned this earlier too. I'm actually a taxi driver, and the ride back to town costs $25. So Steve and his buddies were hanging out and planning an upcoming fishing trip. Unfortunately, he had to tell them that he couldn't go this time because his wife wouldn't let him. After a lot of teasing and name-calling, Steve headed home frustrated. The following week, when Steve's buddies arrived at the lake to set up camp, they were shocked to see Steve. He was already sitting at the campground with a cold beer, swag rolled out, fishing rod in hand, and a campfire glowing. "How did you talk your missus into letting you go, Steve?" "I didn't have to," Steve replied. "Yesterday, when I left work, I went home and slumped down in my chair with a beer to drown my sorrows because I couldn't go fishing. Then the old lady snuck up behind me and covered my eyes and said, 'Surprise.' When I peeled her hands back, she was standing there in a beautiful see-through negligee, and she said, 'Carry me into the bedroom, tie me to the bed, and you can do whatever you want.' So, here I am." So one night, a young boy was woken by odd noises coming from his parents' bedroom. Curious, he tiptoed in and was stunned to see his mom and dad going at it with Mom. "Dad!" he yelled. "What's going on?" "It's okay, buddy," his dad panted. "Your mom just wants a baby." Thrilled at the idea of a new sibling, the boy grinned and went back to bed. A few weeks later, the boy passed by the bathroom and froze. There was his mom, enthusiastically giving oral pleasure to his dad. "Dad!" he shouted. "What's this about?" His dad chuckled. "Well, son, plans changed. Your mom decided she wants a BMW instead." So one morning, while his wife was making breakfast, a man walked up to her and gave her a healthy pinch on her butt. He said to her, "If you firmed up your butt, we could get rid of your girdle." The wife was angry, but said nothing. The next morning, her husband pinched her breast and said, "If you firm these up, we could get rid of your bra." The wife grabbed her husband's pecker and replied, "And if you firmed this up, we could get rid of the mailman, the gardener, the pool man, and your brother." So it's 1957 and Bobby goes to pick up his date, Peggy Sue. Peggy Sue's father answers the door and invites him in. He asks Bobby what they're planning to do on the date. Bobby politely responds that they'll probably just go to the malt shop or to a drive-in movie. Peggy Sue's father suggests, "Why don't you kids go out and screw? I hear all of the kids are doing it." Bobby is shocked. "Excuse me, sir." The dad continued, "Oh yes, Peggy Sue really likes to screw. She'll screw all night if we let her." Peggy Sue comes downstairs and announces that she's ready to go. About 20 minutes later, a thoroughly disheveled Peggy Sue rushes back into the house, slams the door behind her, and screams at her father, "Dad, the twist. It's called the twist." So 3 sisters decided to get married on the same day to save their parents the expense of separate weddings. As a further step to reduce the price tag, the 3 sisters resolved to spend their honeymoon night at home. Later that night, their mother couldn't sleep, so she went to the kitchen for a cup of tea. On her way, she tiptoed by her oldest daughter's bedroom and heard her screaming. The mother thought to herself, "That's normal, especially on her wedding night." She snuck by her second oldest daughter's room and heard her laughing. "That's normal too," she said, smiling to herself. Finally, She slipped by her youngest daughter's room where she didn't hear a peep, but she thought nothing of it. The next morning in the kitchen, after the husbands had gone out, the woman asked her eldest daughter about last night's noises. "Well, Mom," she replied, "you always said if it hurt, I should scream." "You're absolutely right, sweetheart," the mother assured her, turning to her middle daughter. "Now why were you laughing?" she asked. "You always said, if it tickled, I could laugh," she answered. "True enough, honey," the mother smiled, remembering her newlywed days. "Now it's your turn, baby," she said, turning to her youngest daughter. "Why was it so quiet in your room last night?" "Mom, don't you remember? You always told me never to talk with my mouth full." So a young man was showing off his new sports car to his girlfriend. She was thrilled at the speed. "If I do 200 miles per hour, will you take off your clothes?" he asked. "Yes," said his adventurous girlfriend. And as he gets up to 200, she peeled off all her clothes. Unable to keep his eyes on the road, the car skidded onto some gravel and flipped over. The naked girl was thrown clear, but he was jammed beneath the steering wheel. "Go and get help," he cried. "But I can't. I'm naked, and my clothes are gone. Take my shoe," he said, "and cover yourself." Holding the shoe over her pubes, the girl ran down the road and found a service station. Still holding the shoe between her legs, she pleaded to the service station proprietor, "Please help me. My boyfriend's stuck." The proprietor looked at the shoe and said, "There's nothing I can do. He's in too far." So a woman at a maternity hospital is in labor, moaning in pain. Her partner gently strokes her back and says, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart, that you have to go through this." She winces, looks over her shoulder, and replies, "Don't worry, Steve, it's not your fault." So the wife bought a new see-through nightie, wore it without any underclothes, and came swinging before the husband. Aroused, husband says, "You look so beautiful and sexy, my darling." The wife says, "I know that. I tried it the same way at the store, and the salesman was the first one to tell me that." So a girl was a prostitute, but she did not want her grandma to know. One day, the police raided a whole group of prostitutes at a party in a hotel, and she was among them. The police took them outside and had all the prostitutes line up along the driveway. Suddenly, the girl's grandma came by and saw her. "Why are you standing in line, dear?" she asked. Not willing to let her grandma know the truth, the girl told her that the policemen were passing out free oranges. "Why, that is awfully nice of them. I think I'll get some for myself," said the grandma. A policeman went down the line, asking for information from all of the prostitutes. When he got to Grandma, he exclaimed, "Wow, still going at it at your age. How do you do it?" Grandma replied, "Oh, it's easy, dear. I just take out my dentures and suck them dry." So Bill was being interviewed on a talk show and proudly claimed that even at 72 years old, he could still make love 3 times a night. Jenny, who was also a guest, looked intrigued. After the show, she leaned over and said, "Bill, if I'm not being too forward, I have always wanted to be with an older man. Why don't we go back to my place?" They did, and it was fantastic. Afterwards, Bill said, "If you thought that was good, let me sleep for half an hour, and we'll do it again, only better. But while I'm sleeping, hold my balls in your left hand and my pecker in your right." Jenny, a little puzzled, agreed. Half an hour later, he woke up and they made love again this time, even better. Then Bill said, "Jenny, if you let me sleep for one more hour, the next round will be the best yet. Just do the same thing, balls in your left hand, pecker in your right." She nodded, already in the rhythm. An hour later, true to his word, the encounter was mind-blowing. After they both lit a cigarette, Jenny turned to him and asked, "Bill, be honest, does me holding your balls and pecker while you sleep actually turn you on somehow?" Bill leaned back, grinned, and said, "No, but the last time I slept with a slut from Atlanta, she stole my wallet." So 3 nuns went to the priest and confessed they were each going to commit one sin. The priest sighed and said, "All right, go do your sins, then come back and I'll bless you." So they left. Later, they returned, each one laughing harder than the last. The priest asked the first nun, who was giggling, "What did you do?" She said, "I made love to a man." The priest shook his head, gave her a blessing, and said, "Go wash yourself in the holy water." She did. The second nun came up, laughing even harder. The priest asked, "And what did you do?" She said, "I got into a fistfight with another nun." He blessed her too, and said, "Go wash yourself in the holy water." She did. Then the third nun walked up, laughing uncontrollably. The priest asked, "All right, what did you do?" She tried to catch her breath and said, "I peed in the holy water." So, a boss said to his secretary, "I want to make love to you. I'll make it quick. I'll throw $1,000 on the floor, and by the time you bend down to pick it up, I'll be done." She thought about it, then called her boyfriend and told him the offer. Her boyfriend said, "Do it, but ask for $2,000 instead. Then just pick up the money fast. He won't even have time to get his pants off." She agreed. Half an hour later, the boyfriend was getting curious and called her back. "So, what happened?" She replied, "That bastard used coins. I'm still picking them up and he's still going." So 2 parents take their son on a vacation to a nude beach. The father goes for a walk on the beach, and the son goes and plays in the water. The son comes running up to his mom and says, "Mommy, I saw ladies with breasts a lot bigger than yours." The mom says, "The bigger they are, the dumber they are." So he goes back to play. Several minutes later, he comes running back and says, "Mommy, I saw men with peckers a lot bigger than daddy's." The mom says, "The bigger they are, the dumber they are." So he goes back to play. Several minutes later, he comes running back and says, "Mommy, I just saw Daddy talking to the dumbest lady I ever saw, and the more and more he talked, the dumber and dumber he got." So a man returns from the doctor and tells his wife, "The doctor says I only have 24 hours to live." Given the grim news, he looks at her and says, "Honey, can we please make love?" Naturally, she agrees, and they make love. About 6 hours later, the husband says, "Sweetheart, I've only got 18 hours left. Could we do it one more time?" She agrees again, and they make love a second time. Later that night, as he gets into bed, he glances at the clock and realizes he has only 8 hours left. He gently taps her shoulder and says, "Honey, please, just once more before I go." She sighs but smiles and agrees. They make love a third time. Afterward, she rolls over and falls asleep. The man, wide awake and stressing about his final hours, tosses and turns. Now, he's down to just 4 hours left. He nudges her again and whispers, "Honey, I've only got 4 more hours. Do you think we could? At that point, she sits up and says, Listen, I have to get up in the morning. You don't. So a little girl and boy are fighting about the differences between boys and girls, and which one is better. Finally, the boy drops his pants and says, Here's something I have that you'll never have. The little girl is pretty upset by this, since it is clearly true, and runs home crying. A while later, she comes running back with a smile on her face. She drops her pants and says, My mommy says that with one of these, I can have as many of those as I want. So one night, a couple is in the bed, and the husband smoothly caresses his wife's arm. The wife is turned and she tells him, I'm sorry, but I have an appointment with a gynecologist tomorrow, and I want to be fresh. The husband, rejected, turns back to his bedside and tries to sleep. Some minutes later, he turns again and he whispers to her, Do you have an appointment with the dentist tomorrow too? So one night, little Johnny was feeling scared sleeping alone at camp. He sprinted out of his tent, ran to his teacher's tent and said, Miss, can I please sleep with you tonight? She replied, No, Johnny, you need to be brave. Johnny moaned, but my mommy lets me when I'm scared. She sighed and said, All right, just for tonight. Johnny crawled into bed beside her. After a few minutes, he whispered, Miss, can I play with your belly button with my finger? She frowned. No, Johnny. But my mommy lets me. She paused, then said, Well, I suppose it's okay, just for a minute. A few moments passed in silence. Then suddenly the teacher screamed, Johnny, that's not my belly button. Johnny calmly replied, It ain't my finger either.